towards adjournment of this hearing. I know Senator Cornyn, as chairman, had a chance, a second round, to ask some questions. As ranking member, I'd appreciate the opportunity to do the same and offer a closing statement as well.
Okay. Have you voted in this vote?
Not yet.
Because there is a vote open, and I think they're calling.
I'll try to be brief. And in that case, let me forego the questions and just suggest to the witnesses also a thank you for your participation today. I will follow up with some of you with additional questions for the record in writing, and I'll just touch on some of the topics that I wanted to get to. First of all, the impact of these arbitrary quotas. We've heard 3,000 a day to 7,000 a day, detentions, arrests, deportations. If you do the math over the 4 years, you're talking about anywhere from up to 10 million people, right, that would be deported. That's nearly the entire estimated undocumented population in the United States. So that doesn't jive with me as strict focus on dangerous, violent criminals, let alone the investigative process that goes behind each and every one. That's been my argument all along. I agree, let's focus on the dangerous, violent criminals, but when we're implementing these enforcement actions so indiscriminately, it's actually diverting resources and attention from that and from other critical missions as we're moving personnel from other agencies within DHS and Department of Justice and even Department of Defense nowadays. A couple things that I think are important to clarify because of the rhetoric I keep hearing about immigrants and crime as if every single immigrant is a criminal. 70% of people ICE is arresting and booking have no criminal convictions. Again, this is ICE statistics. Of the 30% of them who have some sort of conviction, a significant portion of those offenses come from traffic violations, or yes, immigration offenses. Immigration offenses, not dangerous, violent crime. For those who want to talk about the investment by the Trump administration in immigration enforcement and crime, the president's 2026 budget requested cuts salaries and expenses for the FBI by $545 million, the DEA by $212 million, the ATF by $468 million. And if that wasn't enough, the Department of Justice Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force program, the very one that helped arrest El Chapo, would lose its entire funding and would be shut down completely. So, look, I share this because this hearing, I think, is representative of how difficult it is to have a substantive, constructive conversation about immigration in Congress today. I do think that behind the scenes, there's a lot of members of this committee, of the Senate as a whole, of Congress as a whole, that would like to see progress being made on modernizing our immigration laws. We're all in agreement of the need for a safe, orderly, humane border. We're all in agreement that we need to modernize the system because it has become so problematic. But as we begin to discuss, as we begin to debate, far too often, one side tries to pigeonhole the other as, well, they just want open borders, they don't want to arrest or deport anybody, and the other side is pigeonholing as all illegal aliens are criminals. The truth is much more complex than that. And our response has to be more thoughtful than a lot of the rhetoric that we're hearing in committee hearings and on the evening news. If we want to be informed, let's be informed by reports like that from the National Bureau of Economic Research that shows the comparisons between crime rates and recidivism rates by immigrants versus natural-born citizens, for example. I'd like to submit it for the record. If this is just about resources for enforcement, by the way, you'd figure the problem would be solved between the Trump administration claiming, hey, crossings at the southern border are next to zero, problem solved, mission accomplished. And by the way, the budget reconciliation bill has a huge infusion of resources for ICE. So if the problem is solved, let's move on to the modernization of our immigration system. We can and must work together to address that. And that's not just people on my side of the aisle saying it. Last month, we saw Congressman Tony Gonzalez of Texas lead 5 of his Republican colleagues on the House side in calling on the Trump administration to, quote, start prioritizing violent offenders rather than wasting resources on immigrants with no criminal records. Earlier this month, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise even helped intervene after an Iranian immigrant who had been living in the U.S. for nearly 5 decades was arrested, acknowledging the fact that there are undocumented immigrants here who have committed no crimes. Leader Scalise conceded, quote, we will have to change law in Congress. And that means both parties are going to have to come together to do it. So yes, there is a path forward for this subcommittee and for this Congress to reevaluate and refocus on what everyone agrees on. We should prioritize detaining and deporting violent criminals. But we should also be working together to support our immigration courts, not stand by while mass firings of immigration judges are happening, because just throwing money at enforcement alone will not fix the problem. It will only overwhelm the system. We should work together and not stand by while the administration decimates our refugee program. And just as Leader Scalise implied, we have to be able to protect these long-term residents of our country who have lived and contributed here for decades and who deserve a path to citizenship. My sincere hope is for this subcommittee to drop the theater. Being loud doesn't make you right about everything. We have to come together and get serious about bipartisan solutions. I'm ready to do the work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you again.